All right, let's do this one. This is the very first problem of Mas-Colell, Whinston, and Green. Okay, for a rational preference relation, if we have x is strictly better than y, which is at least as good as z, then x is strictly better than z. Okay, so this is like similar to a transitivity. Okay, so let's write down what we know. Yeah, we'll start here. Okay, so this is true if and only if x is at least as good as y and y is not at least as good as x. To get the strict relation, y is not at least as good as x, and what do we have? And y has to be at least as good as z. Okay, and now we want to show that y is strictly better than z. Okay, and really this is two goals. This is our goal one is going to be that x is at least as good as z, and our goal two will be that we have to show that z is not at least as good as x. What happened to my cancel? Cancel. Come on. There we go. Not at least as good as x. What is that? There we go. Okay, this one should be easy. I think this is just transitivity. Yeah, this is just, so we have, right, by assumption, we have x is at least as good as y, and y is at least as good as z, so x is at least as good as z by transitivity. Yeah, that one's dumb. Done. Okay, now we got to show that x is not, the z is not at least as good as x. This is probably going to be a little bit harder. Let's see. Okay, so we have all three of those things, and by goal one, we have x is at least as good as z. Okay, so, okay, let's see, what do we have? Well, let's do this. Okay, so let's assume otherwise. Then x is at least as good as z. Yeah, I'm thinking we can assume otherwise and then show there's some contradiction with something up here. We'll just try it. Okay, so we'll assume otherwise. X is at least as good as z by goal one. I'm sorry, other way around. Assume otherwise, then z is at least as good as x, yeah? And by goal one, x is at least as good as z, thus x is indifferent to z. Okay, let's see, what else do we have? Okay, so we have if x is indifferent to z, and no, we have if z is at least as good as x, and x is at least as good as y, by transitivity, x is at least as good as y. Why can I not spell this word? Transitivity. There we go. Okay, so we have z is at least as good as y, and y is at least as good as z. Since z is at least as good as y, and y is at least as good as z, comma, y is indifferent to z. How else could we write that? Okay, yeah, here, now we can use transitivity. So we have z is indifferent to x, and y is indifferent to z. Let me flip those around. Okay, so by the transitivity, which I seem to remember like we've already proved at this point in the text, by the transitivity of the indifference relation, we have that y has to be indifferent to x, which contradicts that y is not at least as good as x. There we go, and we're done. Okay, yeah, I mean, that could probably be a little bit cleaner, but I think the logic's there.